Well, hello again. Here I am back again. This is take three on trying to make this video. Take one was going pretty well. That was about a week ago. And then I got a phone call asking if I wanted to do sound for an Irish band for St. Patrick's Day weekend and basically follow them around for 5 days. Of course, I said yes. Extra work is always good and we really need the money. So that one was cut short. Then I had to do the 5 days of actual work, which was lots of fun, but also quite stressful. I'll probably cut in some little clips of what I spent the last week doing here. So that's how my week looked. Like I said, stressful but fun. And then yesterday, after it was all over, I tried again, and I was literally just too tired. I couldn't talk. I was tripping over my words. So let's give it another go. I wanted to talk about materials and landscaping in Unreal Engine and how I kind of designed the surrounds of my house. But first, I thought I'd show you this, which is the text document in which I took notes during the month-long period in which I was doing tutorials. And if I scroll down here, you will see there's a lot of them. The word count is something like 25,000, which is the length of a Roald Dahl's children's story. So yeah, lots of typing, lots of learning. It's very handy to refer back to because I learned a lot of things, a lot of techniques that I don't necessarily remember off the top of my head. So it's good to be able to refer back when I need to use those techniques again. Okay, back to the engine. Yeah, like I said, I thought we'd talk about materials. So to start with, let's make. Oh, this, by the way, is it is my house sitter project, but it's a blank map, just for testing purposes. Like I believe I said in one of my earlier videos, this is a preview build of Unreal Engine 5, and as such is not 100% stable. When I make changes to materials that are used all over the map, sometimes there's crashes and things like that, which we're obviously trying to avoid. So let's create a basic shape. Let's create a sphere just here floating in space. There we go. Now you'll see the sphere is using a material which is called basic shape material. So let's make a material for it, shall we? We'll go in here and we'll go new material, and we will call this M underscore test. This M underscore, and you'll notice if I look at blueprints, let's just go and find one over here. Start with BP underscore. Now this is a naming convention that a lot of people who use Unreal Engine have kind of adopted. It just makes finding stuff easier. A lot of the time you're using the search bar over here and just typing in car, for instance. It would help if I clicked in the box, wouldn't it? If I had to go out of here, just click on all. Typing in car is going to get me every instance where those three letters are together, but typing in BP underscore car is just going to get me exactly what I'm looking for. So yeah, that's why we do that. Let's go back into here, into our materials folder, and open up the material. So this is what the inside of a material looks like. It's basically this massive output node with all of these parameters in, and you get to connect stuff to them. So it's actually quite easy to make basic materials. Let's say you want to make a flat color. You hold down the number 3 on your keyboard and click. And that gets you this vector value with with 3 variables inside it, which we'll obviously use for red, green, and blue. So let's say we want to make something red. We'll just set red to 1 and connect it up to base color, and bang. Now, let's just do this. Try and position this in such a way so that you can see my screen as well. I do have 2 screens set up, but since OBS is running on the other screen and recording, makes it a little difficult. Yeah, so what we do, let's just move this out of the way, is, now I'll have to minimize this first. Let's apply this and then go back and open up that material again. Now, as soon as I hit apply here, there we go. There's our red sphere. Just maximize this again. Now, underneath there, you'll see something called metallic. Now, some of these parameters are driven by what they call maps, which I'll show you in a bit when we get to more complicated stuff. But a lot of them you can just use a single value for. Like metallic, if I hold on the number 1 on my keyboard and click, I'll get this, which is just a variable. And that I can set anywhere between 0 and 1. Now, for metallic, you can set it anywhere between 0 and 1, but generally speaking, something is either metallic or it isn't, right? So if we set this to 1, you will see suddenly we have a metallic sphere. And if I hit apply here and minimize this, there we go, nice metallic sphere. The same is generally true of the roughness parameter. Let's do the same thing. We'll put in a single value and plug it into roughness. And you'll see when roughness is 0, suddenly we have this very, very shiny metal ball over here. And as soon as we start increasing that, let's actually, let's try and get this in a position so we can see the ball on screen again. Make sure we've got this value selected here. As soon as we start increasing this, okay, no, it's not going to show you in real time, unfortunately, but let's make it say 0.3 and hit apply. You'll see now the ball has roughness to it, well, the sphere rather has roughness to it and is less shiny and metallic. That's kind of the basics of how this stuff works. There's a bunch of other parameters here that we could play with. Specular just controls the reflectiveness of it. Emissive is an interesting one. Let me show you that quickly. If I make, it'll have to be a 3-way one again. As a matter of fact, no, I don't even need to do that. Let's just connect this up to emissive as well. And you'll see now it emits light as well. Once we apply that, if I had to put another sphere next to this, let's say, oh God, it's wandered off in the middle of nowhere. Let's try and get this a bit closer. Yeah, working with stuff in 3D is not always fun. But yeah, now that it's closer, you can see it's actually casting red light onto this because it is emissive. And what we can do to make it even more emissive is open up this color picker again and make this value, the red value, something above 1. So let's make it 10, let's say. And just hit OK and apply. There we go. Now you'll see it's emitting even more light. You'll also see the color change slightly. So because it's emitting light now, so there's obviously things that you can play with there until you're happy with the results. That is kind of the basics of it. There's a bunch of other stuff like normal maps, ambient occlusion. normal maps in particular I want to talk about, but for that we're going to look at landscape. So let's get rid of all this stuff and let's create a landscape. Okay, so to do that we go here to landscape mode, and you'll see, there it is. A flat plane has appeared with 63 by 63 quads, which are the little green squares, 1 by 1 section, so 1 by 1 section in a component. So this is at the same time a section and a component. Those are the three size groupings of what it basically amounts to the vertices of the landscape. If we make this 2 by 2, the landscape will essentially double in size. So let's do that. These are recommended settings in the Unreal Engine documentation. They're apparently it makes sense in terms of processing power to go with certain sets of configurations, and this is one of them. So this is what I used to make my landscape for the house sitter. So we're just going to click create and we will get our landscape. Okay, you'll notice I have this giant paintbrush thing here. This is to sculpt the landscape, but first we want to get a material on there. So we'll go back in here, and now I've got this thing called Auto Landscape Material, which is made by a guy called Unreal Sensei, who makes fully fledged paid tutorials which you can buy, but he also makes free ones. And in one of the free ones he designed this landscape material and gave it away for free, which is damn generous of him because it is incredibly powerful. Let's just go out here and select our landscape, and we'll drag our material in. Now you'll notice you have this called M Auto Landscape, and you have this called MI Auto Landscape Inst. Actually, before we carry on, let me show you the difference between them. M Auto Landscape is the actual landscape. Now, you saw what my little material looked like. This is what a proper complicated one looks like. And this isn't even all of it. Some of these are these little boxes are what they call collapsed functions. So if I open this up, you'll see there's a whole bunch more stuff in here. Yeah, I'm not going to try and explain this. There's no way. But you'll see here we have things like color, a mask, roughness, normal. I was talking about normal maps earlier, but we will get to that. Yeah, so this is where essentially the code lives for the material. And then if we had to go and open up the material instance, you'll see instead of being all that code, it's essentially a list of parameters. Now, remember when I made that simple little material and I was putting in values, right? If I had to make an instance out of that and set those parameters to be instance editable, I could then open up my instance and have something that looks like this, where every instance of the material that you place, you can have different parameters plugged in to those variable slots, which means you don't have to make copies of these very complicated materials and make changes to them. You can just change one variable, which makes life a lot easier. Yeah, so with the material, I don't think I actually did slot it in because I got to talking, didn't I? Okay, let's slot it in. And you'll see that we end up with just a black plane. And the reason for that is we need to define some things here. If I go to landscape and I go to paint, what we need to do is set up layer information. So we'll just do that. Already exists. Oh, this is because I made an attempt to do this before. So what we'll do is we'll just go, which one will it be? Map demo. Okay, so material blend layer info. So if I add this, you will see immediately we have a grassy plane. If I zoom in close, you'll actually be able to see the, oops, too close. You'll actually be able to see the detail in the grass. Let me do the others and I'll be back. Okay, so now what you've got here is, let me just get out of this so that the paintbrush isn't taking up the whole screen. We've got just this flat grass kind of looking thing. Now this material has all kinds of tricks and things built into it to stop the appearance of tiling in textures. Because like I showed you in, let me just go back to it quickly. This little test thing where I've plugged in a flat color into base color, you can also plug in an image, like a picture of grass, which is how these more complicated things work. These more complicated textures, I mean to say. Because if you plug in a flat picture of grass, it's never going to be big enough to fill the entire map. It'll tile over and over, and you will see essentially repeating patterns. So the guys who make these materials have all kinds of tricks to stop that from happening. One of which is to overlay. You'll see this kind of splotchiness. And if we go back to our original landscape material, if I go here are those splotchy patterns. They call this macro variation, and it just overlays it. It overlays the same pattern at 3 different magnification levels. At this one, you can see the magnification level is pretty high, and that helps to disguise the sameness of the tiling pattern, if you understand what I mean. There's another thing they use here called where is it? There's a thing called triplanar projection, which stops textures from looking stretched if you have steep slopes. I'll actually show you that in my main project, because I have a cliff, which we haven't actually looked at yet. But essentially, if you go back here, if we start basically modeling a landscape, let's select the sculpt tool here, you'll see what that does. Essentially, we're stretching and warping the landscape to make these mountain thingies. And what that's doing is stretching the landscape. It's stretching the vertices out. So if I go to wireframe, you can actually see that happening. Notice the nice neat vertices over here, and notice how stretched out they are over here, because I've basically made a mountain out of a flat plane. This function in here, triplanar projection, it does some, again, I'm not going to pretend like I understand the stuff, but it fixes that problem, okay? So, let's just go back to lit. So yeah, this is how I design my landscape. You'll also notice, I should probably have said this first, that immediately upon making a mountain, pleasingly, the material knows that it's a mountain and changes the material to rock, and you'll see that it's kind of blended together here. This is also done inside the material in this section called slope blend. So really, this landscape material has been an absolute blessing to use, because it's made life so much easier. So when I designed my landscape, I used a combination of this texture and these sculpting tools. Then there's a couple of other things here, like if I go to paint in landscape mode, you will see there's a couple of other materials here. Material blend is the default. So material blend is going to blend between A, which is rock, and B, which is grass, depending on the slope. Material A by itself will just be rock, and material B will just be grass. Then we've got material C, which I think is kind of mud. It'll grey the texture out while it loads it. Yeah, there we go. So we have a kind of mud, very nice, very detailed texture there. You'll notice, let me just set the brush size a little bit lower so that we can actually see what we're doing. Let's make it 512. Yeah, you'll notice that little light touches will also automatically blend in. And then the other ones I've got is I've got this really nice, it's also a grassy texture, but it's a little greener. There's sort of clovers and things in it. And then the last one is a sort of dry mud, which looks like this. So the idea is you use the material blend to cover the slopes, and then you can go and paint all kinds of other details in using these others. Now, if we go back to my map, let's do that quickly. My main house sitter map. Okay, it's going to take a second to load, so I'll come back when it's done. Okay, here we are back in my map. You'll notice I haven't used much other than these two basic, the slope function, which is the grass and the rock. And here and there I've done some painting with the kind of dry mud to just over areas where I think there would be foot traffic or whatever. Like I've done it here. If we go, I actually didn't do it here because I want to put paths in. But if we go around the back of the house, yeah, I've just kind of done it here, like where people are going to be walking up and down the steps. Obviously, the grass is not going to grow as well here. And yeah, like that kind of thing. Other than that, and also around this concrete block here, which is the foundation for the pillars that hold up this weird little tunnel thing. Just places where I think the grass won't grow. The reason I haven't painted in any other stuff yet is because there's some extra functionality built into this that needs to be spoken about, which is this. I can take a 3D object like a plant or some of some description and add it to one of those painting textures, and wherever I paint, that 3D plant will be placed. Now this is a little bit of a process, so you'll have to give me a second to set it up so that I can show you. Again, it's all built into the auto landscape material. So if we go in here, now, I actually, as part of a tutorial, I did this myself with another landscape material, but this guy crucially, and for whatever reason, didn't cover the slope detection in his, which made the material much less useful, which is why I went with this one. So if we go here to, here we go, landscape grass is what it's called. Now, let's say that second grass material that I used, the one with the clovers in, let's say we want to have some actual grass in there as well. So what we can do is we open this up and we add an index. And then here we need to add a texture. Now, I have some textures. I'm still looking for the right one, which is why my landscape isn't full of like grass gently waving in the breeze yet. Because some of them look really good. Some of them are too system heavy. You know, my computer is old. I don't want it to crash every time I load a project. So, yeah, let's go and find it. I think it was here somewhere. Here we go. Open world foliage. Let's just see here. We'll look in meshes. Yeah. We'll pick one of these grass types over here. Let's just go with this one. Let's drag that in. And here we can set grass density. Let's just crank that all the way up to full so that you can see how it works. Use grid essentially is going to place your stuff. This is very handy for like making farmland where you want plants growing in a kind of neat and orderly fashion. We don't want that. Cull distance is basically the distance around your player in a circle or in a sphere rather, where it stops drawing the grass to save on processor time. We won't have to set that now, just for demonstration purposes. Scaling, we don't want to be set to uniform. We want to set it to free. And what I generally tend to do is create just a little bit of variation here by going, let's say 0.8, 1.2, 0.8, 1.2, And here, let's say for height, for the z-axis, which obviously will be height, 0.5 and 2. And then random rotation and align to surface we'll leave set to true, and receives decals. We're going to switch off. The decals are images that can be projected onto other textures. We'll leave that off for now. And cast dynamic shadow, as you can imagine, would eat so much processor time that it just would not be funny. So we'll leave that switched off as well. And yeah, that's all set up now. So we'll save that. And now if we go here back into our auto landscape material. Oh wait, I've still got it open here. There we go. And we scroll down all the way through all of these things. There will be a section. Here we go. Material defoliage. Now you can see it's already switched on because I was playing with it the other day, trying to see how it would look. So now if we go back to landscape mode, this might crash my computer, be warned, I'm not sure. And we paint. This will probably, there we go. Sometimes it takes a second. And now you'll see that we have nice real grass sticking out. If I just right click and go play from here, again it'll take a second to draw, but yeah, you can see it's got wind simulation. It's quite long for lawn, and it's quite an odd shade of green. You'll notice also that there's a weird kind of pop-in effect, which, if I'm honest with you, I spent about a week Googling this problem, and it was a nightmare to solve. Eventually I found out that the way to fix that is you need to go you need to go into the which one did we use? I think it was the very first grass mesh, so it would have been this one. And then you have to scroll down and you have to find where it says, God, I can't remember. I think it's screen size is the parameter I'm looking for. Yeah, now this is grayed out because of another. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go into all of that now. Suffice it to say, I can solve that problem, but in solving it, I essentially create other problems to do with processing power and also making changes to actual physical models. There might be something coming in an update to solve that. So as you can imagine, this is pretty powerful. You can add as many of materials to any one of these things as you like. Like if I wanted, you see it says grass varieties, I could just hit the add button and add another grass variety. Or you could use it for little things like twigs lying on the ground, or you could use it for trees. You can use it for anything, essentially. So it's a very, very handy tool. And like I said, the guy who made this material had this in mind. So each one of your 5 layers has one of these things attached to it where you can add all of these 3D models to any texture, which is very handy. And yeah, I don't want this video to be too long. Oh my God, I've been talking for half an hour. I don't want this video to be too long. I'll try and edit it down so that it's not just me waffling too much. Yeah, that's how materials work. That's how landscaping works. There's a lot that I didn't cover, but obviously these are not tutorials. This is just me learning stuff. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.